I Oh, I didn't know there was going to be and we're live. Welcome to WeTaku Anime Reviews, a podcast in which four people with no right to review things are reviewing things. I'm your host, Jovan, and packed away in one of these boxes behind me is my Weebology degree in mostly shonen, which this is not, and I'm extraordinarily disappointed. The rest of my hosts, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Thomas. Today I'm home, you might notice. My certificate of Weebology comes from Pokemon Gold and Silver.
I will challenge you on that.
And, do you know where to get orange berries? Come on.
Everywhere.
Back off.
Alright, I'm sorry. My bad. He's too good.
I've got the guide, alright?
Alright.
Not that I need it, because I already graduated.
Yeah, of course. You finally got your degree, that's all we needed. Alright, you guys might recognize a familiar face here who was here once before.
Hi, I'm JD. They bring me on when they have shows that no one else wants to review. So I'm here to review the next thing that I really didn't enjoy.
Spoiler warning.
Damn.
Spoilers.
Alright, and our final host.
Hey, I'm Karog. I'm a train.
I don't know how to respond to that, so we're gonna keep on going.
Oh, it's so cute.
Is it? Alright,
Yeah,
well.
it's got the little windshield wipers.
So, today we are reviewing something that I didn't expect to be as polarizing as it actually is on this podcast. 5 centimeters per second, which was voted by you guys, so I blame you every single time.
The one person?
5 centimeters per second. 5 centimeters per second is it's a movie. It's about an hour long, made by Makoto Shinkai, done by CoMix Wave Films Studios. It's super highly rated by most of the world. It's a story of a boy and a girl who fall in love at a young age and then are separated, and then proceed to never get over it. I'm just gonna kick off into scores because.
Sure.
Starting off with the story, I think I was more generous than I had to be, but I gave it a 6 out of 10 because, well, there is none. I really like the first. It's told in a series of 3 parts. It's cut into 3 short stories, basically, following this one. It follows the man in the story far more than follows the woman, or I guess boy and girl, as they are for most of the story. But it's cut into 3 parts. I think the first part was actually really well done as its own short story if the rest of the movie hadn't happened. I think part 2 is okay in terms of the movie. I think part 3 is garbage. But, like, even still, all connecting together, it doesn't do very well. And it mostly just deals with really, like, nothing really. So I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 for mostly non-existence, but being passable.
I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I will agree that it's so it's like 3 short stories about taken from like different points of this kid's life. The first one from his perspective, the second one from someone else's perspective, and the third one from, once again, his perspective. And I thought, like, it has a great use of repetition, and I think almost everything that the director Makoto Shinkai was trying to like use, and repetition is used well. You see, like, a truck delivering a rocket after seeing a picture of a rocket in the house, at the school, and I think there might be a background conversation about a rocket going to take off at one point, but it's, like, not important to the main story, and then you get to see the rocket take off, and then once you see it take off, that's when it's important to the story. But the whole story together isn't too cohesive, and I will admit to that. It's a pretty your typical love story of these 2 kids. They like each other, so they'll do whatever they can when they're young, and then when they're older, they don't really make the effort anymore, and they just can't get over it. So yeah, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay. I gave it a 3 out of 10. Because, like, I feel like if you look at this in the analysis of, like, excitement in the story, instead of having the rise to the climax in the fall, it's basically a flat line. Like, nothing feels like a goes anywhere, and it kind of ends with nothing as well. Like there's no payoff really for anything that happens in the story except for, oh, they got over it. Like, and there's one point, there's a train, and he was taking him to the plot, and it just stops, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna sit here for 2 hours and wait for the plot to continue. And I was like, cool, I guess I'll do the same.
On the bright side, it's only a 1 hour movie, so you never got there.
I don't know, like, all these little plot points, I was like, that could be an interesting thing, and then it doesn't go anywhere. And that's basically, like, after a few of those, I was like, okay, I'm starting to lose interest in these, like, red herrings of nothing. So yeah, 3 out of 10.
If I can ask, what kind of red herring, like, what aspect did you wish they pursued?
What? I don't know, it's just the little things where it's like the note flies away and then she gets it, it's like, oh, that's kind of sweet. But all the little things where, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the repetition that they use. I get it. Like, they have the rocket and it becomes kind of important, but not in a sense that I think is worth it for the time they spend on it. Like, we see several rockets and you see it pass and the two are together, and then they see it take off and it's like, oh, that's cool. And then they go on and separate and don't see each other ever again. Like, it's just like that, where nothing builds to anything from what I've seen.
Alright, I guess we can talk about that more in spoiler section, though, at this point. Like...
Oh yeah, there's a spoiler section.
Yeah, no, good job, guys. Allan, you're up.
I don't think I spill too much.
There's really not much
Okay,
to
so
spoil.
I actually gave it a 7.5. Most of my score comes from, like, very... I want to say... the direction of, like, specific scenes. Or, not really specific scenes, but, like, all the little things that the movie sort of does to build up tension, even if it goes nowhere. I think that, like, for example, the train scene, I thought was done very masterfully, because if, I mean, we've already mentioned the train scene, so I'm trying not to spoil things, but it's probably gonna happen. There is a train scene. He is waiting on it. And I found that the constant cutting to, like, the clock, his, like, impatient, mannerisms, I thought that really helped, like, bring to life what they were trying to convey, which was basically, we want to get there to the destination that I'm not going to name.
Then I like at
that
some
was
point
the spoiler.
I like at some
Yes.
point he takes it off too.
Yeah. Alright. I'm sorry, you had more?
No, not really. It's things like that that I thought were done very well. Whether or not the overarching story was very
Painful.
Yeah. I did think that the execution was done so well that I had to give it a higher score.
Alright. Moving on to characters. During pre-show, I think Thomas asked the question, was this more character-driven or plot-driven? I answered neither, and that's gonna stick with my score here. I gave characters a 5, and I know for a fact that it deserves lower, but there was, I think, exactly one character that I liked, so she carried the show just slightly, just barely, just very barely. But characters get a 5 out of 10 because the main character is bland and awful and horrible and never ages past 13, even though he ages. The main girl is mostly absentee and is more of a plot point than she is a character, I'm not gonna lie. And that's it. That's really all the characters that there are. There's the third girl, the girl who shows up in the second act, and she is the only thing that kind of carries, but she doesn't have enough. So 5 out of 10 characters are there.
I think it was story-driven, because I also gave it a 5 out of 10. And while I don't think that the main character was particularly bland or particularly, like, annoying. He was there. He wasn't particularly really anything. Not to say that like he was overly bland, but I mean he was just. It's hard to say, like he did his job, you know. I mean, you can at least ask for that as the main character. He at least had like this motivation, and he stuck to it throughout the end. First girl, who cares? And then second girl, yeah, she was cool. And then there's third girl who I didn't actually.
Oh, that existed for 3 seconds. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, in the third act, there's a third girl, and
yeah,
3 seconds and 3 years, but she isn't super important either. They just talk about how he doesn't really care about her, but I don't know. 5 out of 10. Nothing particularly outstanding in either negative or positive. So.
Okay. So I gave characters a 4 out of 10, just because they all felt very simplistic in a lot of ways as far as like their motivations. Because I don't think this is a spoiler or anything, but basically all of them just kind of have the common theme of like obsessed, where they just kind of like throughout the entire thing, that's their entire obsession is just like each other, and it never really changes, I would say, throughout the movie, except it just kind of fades off at most. So yeah, I just didn't really like. Yeah, once again, second girl's the only character I really kind of like because she had her own things in a way. But yeah, so 4 out of 10 for them.
All right, I also gave it a 4 out of 10. I believe it is very fair to point out that all the characters basically didn't have personalities themselves and were just part of the plot. I do believe it is a plot-driven movie. I'm not going to say show anymore because,
yeah, whatever.
All the characters tend to just go along with whatever happens. There's nothing really stand out about them. In any way, there aren't even like really the quirks that you see in most characters. It's just people going along with the plot. And yeah.
That's admirable, though. They're not tropes. I mean, not archetypes.
You need to be a character to have an archetype.
Yeah.
What?
We're on the same page, Shitty. I like this.
Yeah.
Anything else, Allan? Sorry, we've cut you off both times now.
No, it's
That was
fine.
me, both
I was
times.
about done. Both times.
Alright.
I think my train is my best grill, by the way.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We're gonna move on to animation because I want to talk about something good. Because there's a reason this movie is known as 5 wallpapers per second. There are a lot of gorgeous screenshots. Just so many gorgeous screenshots. The background for the show, the overlay, I think my favorite one. It didn't make sense in the context of the movie, but it was gorgeous. And that sums up a lot of this movie. But it looked great. That's my score, 9 out of 10. It looked good. It was gorgeous. It had nothing. I can't like talk about character design or anything like that because it wasn't. But it's not the kind of movie that should have had it anyways, like to an extent. Like you don't want the quirky shonen like colorful hair or whatever. You want them to look and feel to some extent like real people, and they did, like in the anime way. And like they did their job. The city looked fine, and I think the 5 wallpapers per second, all 5 wallpapers every second, were gorgeous and amazing, and I loved them. So great animation style.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was very pretty. I actually had a couple of the wallpapers for a bit. However, I don't agree that the characters were done all right. I thought that was probably the weakest part of the entire movie. It was all especially as the kids, their faces were weird, eyes wide apart. I'm not sure if the eyes were too small or too big, but there was just probably too big. They seemed too big for their face. Their expressions were a little off in everything that they did, and the actual moving animations were very jumpy. they didn't have a lot of frames for that. I mean, you can't really fault them on that since they're, I mean, putting so much in each frame, so they can only have so many. But it felt like it needed to be a little more dense in that regard. But all the backgrounds, even inside, outside, the sky, the ground, the water, doesn't matter. It was beautiful, as long as it didn't move too much.
All right, JD.
Okay, so I gave it an 8 out of 10 as well, because it's like, wow, is it pretty? It's a really pretty movie. But like, I feel like basically the artist just like took his entire artist portfolio and just condensed it into a movie, is what it feels like. And I can't help but feel like this would almost work better as a visual novel in a weird way. Just because like it's just cutting from like beautiful shot to beautiful shot anyways. So I feel like that would almost just help it in a weird way. But yeah, I also noticed some problems with the characters, especially early on, where sometimes like their faces would just become the 3 black dots, and sometimes like their legs look kind of contorted and weird. I noticed that I didn't really like, but as far as landscapes and everything, all the lighting, it was all very pretty. So yeah, I really liked it. 8 out of 10.
All right. That'd be a really weird visual novel. It'd be a bummer of a visual novel. I gave it a 8.5. I thought everything looked pretty. Oh god, it's gonna be one of those days. As far as like actual animation, like movement, I thought everything was pretty fluid. It is a movie. They don't have as many hiccups with that as TV shows. Backgrounds were gorgeous, especially the lighting. I think 5 centimeters per second has some of the best lighting I've ever seen. Character faces, I can agree to the children being very off sometimes. However, once they get to their older stages, specifically in the second and third parts of the movie, they seem fine to me. And yeah, 8.5.
Alright, so moving on to sound, we're going to switch it up and go reverse order because sometimes I like sort of screwing over the guy who has to do production.
Oh.
So, Allan, how do you feel about sound quality?
I thought sound quality was actually pretty good. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Soundtrack is very good in my opinion. It both fits the story as well as being pretty good on its own. I listened to it about 2 hours before the show, and I could still say that, even without any of the scenes playing. As far as sound effects, I thought they were all really well done. Specifically, trains. I thought the trains were just amazing, the way that they sounded. I like trains. I am a train. Voice acting.
Allan identifies as train, you've all found out. It's the secret of the podcast.
Voice acting was serviceable. People didn't actually talk that much in a way that would like normally require any more than average voice acting, so there wasn't really much to say about that. Yeah, I will now honk to my next person.
Okay, so I guess that's me. So yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10 as well. I really like this song, especially when I first watched it, which was like about 4 years ago, I think. I remember I was obsessed with especially the ending song, which is a theme that repeats throughout. So I thought it was very pretty, and beyond that, like sound effects, the voiceovers, the announcer that continually shows up throughout the show, I think it all set the mood very well, and the setting. I think it did a generally good job. Voice actors were like, I would say like par to good. There's nothing really special, I'd say, because they never really had to read any super emotional scenes that I recall. But yeah, so even out 8 out of 10, I liked it. the music and all that.
I gave it a 7 out of 10. I definitely thought the voice acting was. I mean, voice acting wasn't bad, but it was definitely average that I felt. Just like JD said. So I guess that pulled down my score a bit, but the main thing to take away from the sound I felt was like they did put a lot of emphasis on the background sounds, the cicadas, the ocean, the wind, and they never forget about it, is the thing. So like they'll introduce the ocean in the beginning of the scene, and you will hear it throughout, even under their talking, you'll still hear it just a little bit, and then it never goes away until they're in somewhere totally different. And same goes with the train, when they're in the field, they could be in the classroom, and you'll hear voices, you'll hear people walking in the background, and it all comes together pretty well. I might want to bump that up to an 8, but for now, I have a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to keep mine at a 7 out of 10, which is my score. A lot of what they said, I don't really need to repeat. I think one thing that should be noted for me is after watching the first third of it in subbed, in Japanese, I went back and watched the entire movie from start to finish as dubbed, because I thought the sub was average at best, but like it wasn't amazing, so I just kind of left and watched dubbed. Dub wasn't great, I'm not gonna lie. It was passable, which I guess you can say the same about the sub. The English dub is passable, but you get a lot of dubisms, especially in terms of tone. It's hard to explain what I mean by that, but if you've watched enough dubbed anime, you kind of sometimes just inflections and tone are wrong as how we usually talk, but it's consistent throughout the entire like anime world. But it bothered me a lot more here because, like they said, there's not too many like emotional conversations that happen. There are some, but like not a lot of actual to and forth conversation. And the few that I did hear, which were almost entirely in the second part, they weren't great. I think the monologuing in English was done fine. I think the conversations were not. So I'm going to keep it a 7 out of 10. I think the music was fine. I think the background noises were great, but either sub or dub, I didn't love the voice acting either way. With all that in mind, we get to move on to the spoiler discussion section, which is, I have a lot I'm ready to talk about here. But if you do not want to be spoiled, go watch the movie. It's only an hour long. You'll be able to find us. Our VOD will be up on youtube.com/WeTaku eventually. Allan, I'm looking at you.
Look, my internet's pretty terrible right now. As they could probably figure out, because Skype. We use Skype.
Fair enough. We're doing our best. But eventually that VOD will be up on YouTube, so you can come and join us there. It'll be uploaded after the show. And you can just watch the spoilers from there on out. If you don't care about spoilers, or you've seen the movie and just want to listen to us validate or unvalidate your opinion, keep listening right now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the spoiler section. We kick it off the same way as we always do. Who was best
Surfer
girl?
Girl.
I think we all have the same one. Surf Girl, yeah.
Surfer Girl, only character.
Train.
Literally only character.
Train.
Okay, and Train. Surfer
Maybe
Girl
the
and Train.
Rocket. I like the Rocket.
Talking about the Surfer Girl, though.
Fine, then I'll take the crossbar that goes down when the train goes by.
I think this discussion has a lot. It tells a lot about the characters of this movie. I think. No, but talking about the Surfer Girl, I actually like her a lot more than like you guys let on in the spoiler-free section, due to the fact that you said like there wasn't much to her and like it was obsession was her theme as well. The difference is I legitimately do believe she got over hers to some extent. Because they kind of matched the time she finally mastered surfing after 6 years of failure to the exact same like day that she decided that she wasn't going to keep pursuing him and she was just going to let that fish go. And
it was also the day that she decided to
ask him out, yeah.
Ask him.
Yeah.
But then when she looked at him and noticed that he was never looking at her, she made the decision to just drop it entirely. And like that hurt it looked like it hurt a lot. But like the fact that she did it showed more development than any other character in this entire goddamn movie.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling with some of the lines given, I get the feeling the director wanted you to think she never got over him, because apparently that's his theme. I'm gonna go with the fact that she probably did get over him because she's shown character development, and I believe in humanity as a whole.
I think,
but
like, she's this sterling example of like, what's like everything wrong with the main character. She sort of doesn't have.
She wasn't.
Yeah. I think that contrast was what really made the like second part. Everyone just sort of stopped
like
talking.
I feel like the main character never tries to confront any of his problems. He just kind of like.
No, we're still going.
But yeah, I feel like the main character never really tries to deal with any of his problems. He just kind of like sits in self-loathing and like, oh, I guess this is just how the world is. This is just like what it will be forever. But she was like, she kept trying to serve. She kept trying to like get closer to the person that she likes, even if he's not a great character. But yeah, and just the fact that her character is more than, oh, I just love this guy. Like she serves, she does other things. Like I don't know.
She tries.
She's like. She's not just the girl who loves the main character. She's her own person.
She's a girl who's trying to find herself.
Yeah, like main love interest girl. Like she's nothing. She's like, oh, I like this guy and he likes me, but we live far apart. That's her whole thing.
Oh, I want to say something about
I think it's
that.
arguable that she even likes him. All right.
You said that both the main characters didn't get over each other. I would like to say that the girl got over the guy.
The girl got over him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the girl definitely got over him.
That was that whole train scene where she leaves and he stays.
Yeah.
Well, at the very
I didn't even notice that. That's great.
yeah, and also at the very end, I think he wouldn't have gotten over her if she didn't leave. Like if she had stayed there and then walked away, he would have been like still thinking about her. But then because she wasn't there, he has the moment, like you see like a split second before the credits, he does smile and then starts heading walking away.
I think it was closure from, because they had promised to watch the cherry blossoms fall again, and technically they did that together, but she walked away. Like they very technically watched the cherry blossoms fall together as they walked by each other.
Yeah,
and then she walked away.
Does anyone know if cherry blossoms actually fall at that speed?
5 centimeters per second. I'm just gonna trust him on that.
I honestly think I've heard it somewhere in another anime that wasn't this. So
that's really the only expertise we can ever get on cherry blossoms is anime. Here in America, we don't really have much of that falling everywhere.
at DC,
We're not there.
we got yeah, we're not.
Yeah. No, but yeah. So there's that. There's a theme I really wanted to talk about though that stretches past just this. I don't know if it's a mistranslation. I'm inclined to believe it's not after some interviews I've read with like different directors and writers of Japan. The Japanese concept of love seems very different than ours. Because like whenever you're confessing to say like a crush or something, you're not confessing that you like, you're confessing that you love them. And that's always weirded me out that way. And like I've seen and read interviews with different directors who've written a variety of things in Japan, and they talked about the fact that like love has always weirded some of them out or something, because it's the idea that you really love this person that you've never even met, and that bothers me a lot. The fact that they just decide that that is love, that is the same thing as like someone that you've known and like have gotten to know and have like eventually hit that point. And this movie, it confuses me a lot because of that, because they were 13-year-olds, it was a crush. Even if it was like quote unquote pure or whatever, it's still, they're 13. And yet it still ruins this guy's life forever because he never moves past it. And there's never a moment where he dated a girl for 3 years and felt nothing there, and because he was comparing it to the quote unquote love of his obsession. And apparently that's, I don't know, in a lot of anime and manga, that's my only experience with Japanese culture, to be absolutely fair, that's how love is portrayed, and it bothers me a considerable amount.
I think this movie
I feel like
specifically.
it does have some sort of like issue with it.
I think this movie specifically like
Oh?
pokes. I think this movie specifically pokes at that theme.
Notion.
Yeah, that notion. Because like it ruins his life, right? It is
Yeah.
not something that should have ever happened. He should have moved away. He should have
Yeah,
gotten
and it,
over her. And
it
instead,
highlights like every experience where he would have been better off if he didn't.
If he had gotten over her, yeah.
yeah.
It's just, I don't know, I see that theme in other things as well, and it just, I wanted to hear you guys' take on that.
I didn't actually know that was true, but also, I mean, I feel like there must be some distinguishing because, like, other bit, because, I mean, they don't just say, like, their big thing, sorry if anyone speaks Japanese, I'm gonna butcher this, but their big thing that they say instead of daisuki, they say aishiteru, and that's, like, the big, like, I love you.
Do you think I'm, like, dealing with a problem in translation more so than I am with, like, a culture thing, or?
I think it's more the culture thing that they do, I think, put a lot of emphasis, but I think that they have like a different idea, or like at least different like tiers of love. But
Yeah.
just like I think we do in the West, I think, I don't know. That's my
I mean,
take.
some people do.
And I guess to me, it's just the fact that they're both called the same concept.
It's because we don't
Well, yeah,
really
some
have like different
people-
words for it.
some
It's just
people are a
like
little
like and
obsessive.
love. And there are three.
To me,
There are
the
three-
distinction of different words is important.
Yeah, but in Japanese there are kind of like three different stages. There's like tsuki, which is like what you see in a lot of anime where a girl or guy is confessing like in the back of a school. I'm gonna take this to the most generic place as possible.
Alright.
And like it's like a crush kind of thing. Daisuki is sort of kind of almost similar. It's more towards love. It's but it's still like it can also be taken in sort of a friend kind of way. It has multiple meanings, but the big one, like Thomas said, is aishiteru, where it's usually used in more like marriages and like very long relationships. So it's mostly like a wording thing, and we just don't have enough words to really convey that. We just have like and love, and I think usually like is used in the correct situations, but the difference between the two loves kind of is weird.
It doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't translate well.
Yeah.
I am going to argue semantics real quick.
Alright.
Doesn't English have a lot more words than Japanese?
Yeah.
But different
I
concepts.
guess
If we have more words that describe concepts that we don't have, if you have more words, it doesn't work either way. Like I think English has more words than a lot of languages. But for example, with me, I speak Arabic. There's some things that just cannot be translated into English because there's just no concept for that thing. It could be similar to that.
Yeah. I have some experience with Chinese. Don't say I speak Chinese because I really don't. But there are a lot of concepts that just aren't really there. Like, there are similar concepts, but like to get the full meaning, sometimes things are left out if you just translate them directly into the English equivalent.
Yeah. All right. So moving back to the movie we're supposed to be reviewing.
Yes.
There was another thing I wanted to point out or talk about, I suppose. If I had watched this, I think 4 years ago, we'll say, I think I would have been a lot more receptive to it, just because I was like, I would have been in high school then, I was younger, and the kind of concepts here wouldn't have struck me as so, like, wrong or empty. Is there a point to be made with this movie that way, that like it was meant to be watched by like 13-year-olds, the first audience of the movie, or Like
feel
the first section.
I feel like that's definitely the case. It does seem to be definitely oriented to a younger audience, or yeah, I'm just gonna stick with that. With a younger audience, and for simply the fact that, I mean, they're kind of going through the like obsessiveness phase, if I mean you ever get out of that. I think it's a lot easier to accept the flaws in the characters as a younger person.
The relationship doesn't bother you nearly as much, I think, if you're young than like if you're older and you're just like, this is actually just like really bad.
I honestly think the
Because they're definitely not
relationship should be
portraying like a
bothering you.
mature relationship where two
Yeah.
people really like each other and they'll deal with things. No, it's very much a naive relationship where they don't really, they know they like each other, but they don't know what to do with it, and they just kind of like, oh, I'll love you from afar, and it's like, no, but I'll keep loving you forever, blah blah blah, and then eventually they become adults and have to realize, oh, we can't live our lives like this. We
That's
have
the problem,
to
though.
move on.
I would have liked to see him realize it more than just like a smile and walk away.
Yeah, like some
She
sign that he's
realized it.
moving on with his life.
There was a moment with her as well, just in the ending right before the credits, where she like grabs her future husband's arm and like they look very happy. Like her face opened up, like her face, like that was the first time I'd seen it like actually open up like that when she saw her future husband.
Mhm.
So that was a sign, like even though she kind of like remembered her youth after she found her old love letter, like she was still like she had moved on a long time ago, because like that was actual like joy when she saw her fiance.
I honestly think that
Alan,
I
were you
don't-
about to say something?
yeah. I honestly, like, I can't really say what audience this is for, because I honestly think that you're not supposed to like their relationship. I think it's supposed to annoy you and sort of bother you that it's even like that. And everything around him is sort of supposed to exemplify that, like how basically everyone moves on except for him. I think the main character really isn't like.
I have a bone to pick with that point, though.
Yeah.
I have a bone to pick with that, though.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But that's the thing, though. Not until the third act do you actually see his life not being great because of it. Like, the second act, sure, he's always, like, distant and vague. Like, you know? But you're seeing him through the perspective of a girl who likes him. And he still seems to still have friends. He still seems to, like, be doing fine in school. He's going step by step, and he still seems kind of pathetic. But, like, he doesn't seem awful, right? It's not until the third act, which I should note is 10 minutes long, compared to the rest of the 50 minutes beforehand, that you see short, very short flash of his life, quote-unquote, falling apart. He quits his job, and his girlfriend of 3 years breaks up with him within about a minute. And then...
40% of that third act is a song. So,
and yeah, it's flashbacks to the old act. So, it just, I get that, but then they should have focused on that more, because they didn't. They gave it like a 10 minutes at the end of the movie, and even that like really a 5 minutes at the end of the movie. And I'm not okay with that. I don't think.
Right. I think there's like audio issues right now, so I'm just gonna say this now. I can't really argue with that, but at the same time, I think that the second act, like, I think the second act is a little more harsh than you're giving it credit for. Because like when you look at him, he's like almost a zombie in the way that he's like doing things. He like does things, he kind of goes through the motions, but he's not really there. And having an outside perspective kind of helps with that.
Shows that a little bit more.
Yeah.
he always had the pallid expression on his face. He didn't really do like act much. He was just kind of going through the motions, and like you see him always on his phone, texting supposedly the girl from the first.
They're never
from
sent.
the first one. I was gonna say that, but at the end you find out that he's really just writing these messages, and it's just like, so like melancholic in his brooding, and he's just like, I don't want to do anything else except for think about this girl, and it is obsessive. It's weird. I don't remember where I was going with that. I wanted to point that out.
No, you're covering my point, I guess. But I don't know. I guess another thing should be said that I don't do well with, like, you're not supposed to like this person. Well, I don't like this movie then, because they're there the whole time. And that's just my take on that kind of thing.
Yeah, like, I might be a little biased. I like shonen cool things, but
I also like shonen cool things.
It's kind of like sitting through this slog. Yeah, I can understand why someone would like this movie, but I just don't really care for it because you're kind of sitting through this slog, this character just kind of like moping and like so full of self-loathing, and it's just like, okay, this is happening. I get it from like an artistic kind of standpoint where they're making the point of this is what obsession does to a person, but it's not something I'd watch of my own volition at this point.
No. Is there any other topics anybody wants to bring up before we move on?
The main character is weak. Now that Thomas has brought up that he never sent those things, I just want to say the main character is weak.
Weak. Weed him out.
Alright, we've called out the main character. So we're gonna move on to final thoughts and ratings. And I guess we kind of also throw in recommendations there. For me, like, I've been very open about the fact that I did not like this movie. I didn't think it was good. I didn't think it was... I don't think it was an enjoyable watch to me. I can see where you're coming from if you're watching this and you enjoy it, especially if you're a younger audience. I know I was talking to my younger brother about this. He's in high school. And he actually really loves it and like relates more than I can with this at this point. But to me myself, I can't in good conscience give this a good score. However, just due to the sheer art design and the fact that I can understand why somebody might enjoy this, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, but I don't think I can give it a recommendation.
Alright. I think that, like Jovan said, this is a very polarizing movie. If you're not into the sort of melancholic, just, this is the message we're trying to make, and we're gonna stick to it, it's not going to be fun, because this subject isn't fun. I would say stay away from it. I don't think that people who don't enjoy that kind of thing would like it. I will say that I myself enjoyed it, mostly because I liked how well it was executed for the pretty simplistic theme that it was going for. So I gave it a 7 out of 10. And yeah. This could have been Garden of Words, which is more upbeat, but you guys voted for this.
Call out the audience. Always call out the audience.
Garden of Words is better. Also, much more pretty than this, even if that's hard to believe. It's awesome. I gave it a 6 out of 10. 7 out of 10. And I would recommend it to a younger audience. Or if it's like one of the first anime you've seen, but if you've seen like 50 by this point, it's nothing new. I don't think, even if you're just looking for the animation, just look it up on Google Images. I mean, we've already spent an hour talking about it. You don't need to watch an hour of it. We've pretty much said everything. Look at the pictures. It looks cool. I mean, I enjoyed it. I did, but I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone unless you're kind of new to this thing. So, yeah. 7 out of 10.
Before we go to JD, sorry, I just want to point out, because all of us have said, like, to a younger audience, we're not talking, like, a younger audience, like elementary schoolers. It's more of that early teenager range, I think, from, like, 13 or 12 or 13 to, like, even until, like, 16 years old, I think, is, like, the perfect age to to really, I think, get the most out of this movie. But
We're all college
Yeah.
students, by the way. That's why we say younger.
yeah, we're barely even adults, and yet here we are. So I can't imagine it gets better as you get older.
I'm a train. I don't know what
Kidding?
you're talking about.
So yeah,
All right, sorry.
basically as far as like recommendations go, basically what Allan said, where if you're like me or Jovan and you like to see like action cool things and like the story moving in a very like set direction where you know where it's going and you're excited to see that, like don't watch this movie. It's not for you. It's not for me. But if you're into the dramas and you're into the looking at the relationships and like symbolism and all that, I'm sure there's I know for a fact there's lots of people who love this movie. So yeah, it's kind of like up to your discretion for if you want to watch it or not. But yeah, as far as my thoughts on this movie, yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 10 because like it's since I don't really like the story, I was like, this is a very pretty slideshow. Even if the story kind of detracted from my enjoyment of the slideshow, it's very pretty. It's very well done. I can recognize that it's well done, and everything's thematically pretty like held together, I would say, even if story-wise it's not as steadfast held together. But yeah, so I give it a 5 out of 10. I get it. I just don't like it.
All right, so that is 5 centimeters per second. Thomas, I believe you were in charge of the movies we're doing next week, because friendly reminder that we are in our summer movie marathon month, and you guys get to vote on what movies we do. So Thomas, give them their options for next week.
So next week, you can have the lovely Redline, a little shonen, over-the-top action, took 7 years, fully hand-drawn, beautiful masterpiece to make. Or my favorite movie of all time, fucking Ghost in the Shell. Come on, it's classic. It's got what is humanity? Where is it going? And then at the top right here, we got a little psychological, little terror masterpiece thriller, and that is Perfect Blue. And those are my 3 favorite anime movies. So select one of them, because they're all awesome, and I wouldn't mind watching any of them over again.
I think the guy who made Redline was fired, by the way.
Like, why did you choose this? But I think you're good. Huh?
I think the guy who made Redline was fired for taking 7 years to make one thing. I'm not entirely sure.
Probably for spending
$1
billion on this project.
Yeah.
Don't quote
These
that.
two
No,
are by
I
Madhouse. I don't know.
I
who
mean,
did this one.
We'll call it the Kojima issue for now. But you make a masterpiece, but the resources put in for that masterpiece are time and money, so you gotta remember that bit. But alright, so that's what's coming up. Other things coming up on the channel, I'm happy to announce that, and this is super, like, not set in stone yet, how we're gonna do it. But keep an eye out for Real Taku, a new segment we just decided to start opening up, where you're probably gonna get this... Shush, they don't need to know that bit. Where you're probably going to see the same guys, just us up here, maybe less people, maybe more people, maybe some guests, who knows. But just discuss the state of anime as a whole, certain topics. I think we wanted to really kick it off with shonen, especially the difference between the olden days of long-running infinite shonen that's kind of reaching the end of its age, and the newer things that are coming out. So I would be very happy if you guys kept your eyes open for that. Look out for Real Taku. It'll be coming soon to a YouTube near you. Other than that, the Let's Play that we have had on hold indefinitely is considerably still on hold, so don't you worry about that. And just keep looking out for more WeTaku anime reviews.
Speaking of Real Taku, I'm probably not going to be a train there. I may have a camera. May. Don't.
Oh, that is actually the most exciting thing. We're going to have 4 people again. Which reminds me, I should also announce that next week we get the glorious return of one of our original hosts, Steven. He's returning. He's back from the far east to discuss weeb stuff with us in person. So, that'll be
And
hype.
Jovan needs to create, but maybe not for next week. We don't know.
It's going to be so hard. Yeah, I get to work on overlays. It's going to be great. Alright, so JD, I'd like to thank you for being on the show again, and I'm so sorry we've never chosen you for anything that you like.
Someday you'll accidentally do something that I'll enjoy. and I'll be on.
We'll actively look for things
I'm
you'll
excited.
hate.
I'm excited to talk about shonen. That's good enough.
One day.
So
Yeah. All right. You're definitely gonna be on WeTaku. Don't you worry about that. I need you there, man. I need a shonen buddy. All right. So with all that in mind, I think it's time for us to say goodbye, and we'll see you next Monday, 6 o'clock Eastern.
Goodbye.
bye.